Unit 6 of Writing for Academic and Professional Success is titled Mechanics of Writing. In this unit, we examine two major conventions of academic writing: punctuation and documentation styles. We learn why punctuation is important in academic writing. We understand the rules of using punctuation. We examine the essential punctuation marks commonly employed in academic writing. We also understand the importance of maintaining academic integrity while writing. So, what is punctuation? Punctuation refers to the tools used in writing to separate sentences, phrases, and clauses so that their intended meaning is clear. Punctuation is the system of symbols that we use to separate written sentences and parts of sentences and to make their meaning clear to the reader. Each symbol is called a punctuation mark. Which are the important punctuation marks? Comma. So what is a comma? C-O-M-M-A, comma. While a period or a full stop ends a sentence, a comma indicates a smaller break. Some writers think of a comma as a soft pause, a punctuation mark that separates words, clauses, or ideas within a sentence. You can use a comma after certain introductory words or phrases. You can use commas to separate words and word groups in a series of 3 or more items. You can use a comma to set off a quote from the rest of the sentence. You can use comma to list nouns in a sentence. When writing a date in the month, day, year format, you can set off the year with commas. With few exceptions, a comma should not separate a subject from its verb. Look at this sentence: my friend Cleo is a wonderful singer. So, if you put a comma after my friend Cleo, that is wrong. It's an incorrect sentence. You don't need a comma over there. You can just write my friend Cleo is a wonderful singer. Be especially careful with long or complex subjects. For example, navigating through snow, sleet, wind, and darkness is a miserable way to travel. One comma needs to be removed in this sentence. Can you guess which one? Navigating through snow, comma, sleet, comma, wind, comma, and darkness. After darkness, you don't need a comma over there. So, and darkness is a miserable way to travel. Don't use a comma in a compound predicate unless there's a chance of misreading. Compound predicate, what is that? The predicate is a part of a sentence that describes the subject. A predicate will have verbs. So when you use 2 or more verbs, then you have a chance of getting a compound predicate. Look at the sentence: Cleo spotted the man who entered the diner, comma, and waved. What happens if you don't put a comma over there? In the sentence above, you need the comma to make clear that it was Cleo who waved and not the man. If there is a chance of misreading the sentence, use the comma. Look at this sentence: before eating, the family said grace. So, is the family going to be eaten? No. Before eating, comma, the family said grace. Grace means to pray. Say thank you to God for giving the food. Next, we move over to semicolon. Semicolons are as basic as a period stacked on top of a comma. Use a semicolon to separate two sentences when there is no coordinating conjunction such as and, but, or, nor, for. Do you use a capital letter after a semicolon? Generally, you don't have to use that. A semicolon should be followed by a capital letter only if the word is a proper noun or an acronym. Look at the example. We can go to the museum to do some research. Semicolon. Mondays, M capitalized, are pretty quiet there. Remember, semicolons are not interchangeable with commas or periods. Instead, they are somewhere in between. They are stronger than a comma, but not quite as divisive as a period. Semicolons connect related independent clauses. For example, money is the root of all evil. Semicolon. I don't believe the reverse is necessarily true. So both can stand as complete sentences, but they are interconnected. So you can use a semicolon to show that both are connected. Delete the conjunction when you use a semicolon. A semicolon isn't the only thing that can link two independent clauses. Conjunctions like and, but, or can do that. But you shouldn't use a semicolon and a conjunction. Look at the example. I saw a magnificent albatross, comma, and it was eating a mouse. That is incorrect. Instead, you should write, I saw a magnificent albatross, semicolon, it was eating a mouse. Or if you don't want to use a semicolon, you can write, I saw a magnificent albatross and it was eating a mouse. We can use semicolons in a serial list. We can use it to divide the items of a list if the items are long or contain internal punctuation. This is slightly tricky. In these cases, the semicolon helps readers keep track of the divisions between the items. So you have plenty of items which are separated using commas. So how do you know there are internal divisions? So in this case, you can use the semicolon. Look at this example. I need the weather statistics for the following cities, colon, London, comma, England. So that's one unit, semicolon. London, comma, Ontario, again another unit. So you separate that with the semicolon. Then Paris, comma, France, semicolon. Paris, comma, Ontario, semicolon. So you have separate units and each unit has two parts. So you need to separate London and England, so use a comma. But then if you put a comma after England, then it becomes confusing. So use a semicolon. Now what about a colon? A colon, two dots. A colon introduces an element or series of elements that illustrates or amplifies the information that precede the colon. While a semicolon normally joins two independent clauses to signal a close connection between them, a colon does the job of directing you to the information following it. Many people are confused about using colons, but their function is actually quite straightforward. Think of it as a flashing arrow that points to the information. When a colon appears in a sentence, it usually gives the silent impression of as follows, which is, or thus. For example, there are three types of muscle in the body, colon, cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. The colon in this sentence signals that you are about to learn the names of the three types of muscles the sentence already mentioned. We might silently read the sentence this way. There are three types of muscles in the body, and they are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Colons are often used with lists, as in the example above. They can also be used to signal further clarification. We have two options here, colon, stay and fight or run like the wind. So that shows the options. Then we move over to the quotation mark. We use quotation marks to show or mark the beginning and end of a word or phrase that is somehow special or comes from outside the text that we are writing. Quotation marks can be double or single quotes. That is really a matter of style. Now, quotation marks are also called quotes or inverted commas. When do we use this double quotes? We use double quotes to quote somebody, some author or something. To show quotations inside quotations, we can use that. To set off titles of essays, journals or poems, we can use quotation marks. Whether you are writing dialogue or citing information in a paper, it's natural to wonder about quotation mark rules. Does punctuation go inside quotation marks? The answer depends on the type of punctuation you're using. For example, she said, comma, double quotes, I got lost on the way to the park, period, or a full stop. Then the quotes completes it. The words inside the quotes form a complete sentence. The period or the full stop goes inside the quotation mark. What if we change the order? Where will you put the comma? Quote starts, I'll trade you 3 blue beads for that feather, comma, quotes close, Lola said, full stop. So in this case, the comma comes inside the quotes. What about the question marks? The girl picked up the cat and said, comma, quotes start, don't you want to wear this doll dress, comma, kitty, question mark, and the quotes close. So the question mark also goes inside the quotes. What about the exclamation mark? They also go inside the quotation mark. Look at the example. Hey, Ella yelled. That's my donut, not yours. So the exclamation mark goes inside the quotes. Now, colon or semicolon, where will they go? They go outside the quotation mark. The report listed one primary reason native speakers frequently mix up punctuation, quotes close, colon, the rules are difficult to remember. So in the case of colon or semicolon, they appear outside the quotes. Some more examples of commas inside the quotation marks are, don't be late for class, comma, quotes close, the teacher said. What about the single quotation mark? You use the single quotation mark to emphasize a word or a term. To show a quotation inside a quotation, you can use that. What about apostrophe? We use apostrophes to show possession or to show contraction. So you can write don't for do not. Then this is Mary's bag. So you can use that apostrophe. Contractions are not common in academic writing. So it is always better to use the full form of the word and not don't. Instead of don't, you write do not. Or instead of can't, you write cannot. Next, we move over to parentheses. Parentheses are punctuation marks that are used to set off information within a text or paragraph. We use parentheses quite regularly, but we don't use this term. We use brackets instead of this. Now, outside the realm of emoticons, parentheses always come in pairs. They can enclose a single word, phrase, or even an entire sentence. Typically, the words inside the parenthesis provide extra information about something else in the sentence. For example, curators from the American Museum of Natural History, now you give the abbreviation for that inside the parenthesis, AMNH, have announced a new dinosaur exhibit. Then while walking down the street, parenthesis, paying more attention to her phone than to her feet, closing it, then comma, Catherine tripped over the curb and sprained her ankle. What about brackets? Brackets are sometimes called square brackets. We use the term brackets for parentheses as well. But then there's a difference here. Parenthesis is what we usually use while writing. Alright? And brackets, actually square brackets. Where do we use this, or why do we use this? They used to show that words have been added to a direct quotation. Sometimes when quoting a person or document, adding a word or two is necessary to provide enough context for the quote to make sense. For example, the original sentence you want to quote might read, "We went and had a great time." Out of context, this sentence doesn't mean much, but you can add bracketed information to make the context clear. We went, square bracket, to the new dinosaur exhibit and had a great time. So inside that square bracket, you are giving extra information. It's extremely important to use brackets when you change a direct quote. Forgetting to add them results in a misquote. So you cannot just simply add information on your own. You're quoting somebody and then you add something from your side inside the quotes. You shouldn't do that. So you need to use the square brackets to show that that is something that you have added.